Going to start. Thank you. Hello, we just started the recording. If you're watching this in the future, you haven't missed a thing. The course enrollment is going to start in just a few weeks. It continues all throughout July. So depending on if you have transferred from another college or university, or if you're coming here right directly from high school, you'll have an enrollment date at some point between around the second week of July to the end of the month. We really want to make sure you are prepared for that today. So we've got a lot of information, but we'll also have quite a bit of time for a Q&A. I'm going to start by having us all introduce ourselves. So my name is, as I said, Claire Wilson. For the most part, once students get to SFU, often they don't need to work with me too much more after that. That's most of what my job focuses on. However, there is an exception to that, which is any of you who might be interested in coming into BPK if you're in another faculty. So some of you might be in something like arts and you want to transfer to BPK. Folks like myself can help with that. Aiden, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So my name is Aiden Wiki. First of all, it's great to see you all here. I was a kin student actually back in the day, so I totally relate to maybe some of the questions that you might have. I work here in SciSpace, so this place is open for all science students, so you're all welcome here. Any student who's taking a science course or even interested in science is welcome here. So we offer a place to hang out, to study, but also just to ask questions. If you have any general advising questions, you can come talk to myself. Mark, who's also, his picture is the second from the left there. His office is here. Carmen works here as well. We have a whole team of people who are here to support you. So welcome again today, and I look forward to meeting each of you soon.
And Sophie.
So I'm Sophie Dunbar. I'm the advisor for biomedical physiology and kinesiology. At the moment, we have 1,275 approved majors and minors. And I am the only BPK advisor, which is the reason for this amazing team here, because you may reach out to me and I may actually say to you that I may direct you to one of this amazing team. Because so if you're already approved, and you will be able to see that from your advising transcript, many of you that came in right out of high school will be directly admitted into one of our majors, except for BNU intended. And that means that if you have questions, you want to book an appointment, that's with me. The intended students, because I only have so much capacity, I'm going to pass you on to some of our other amazing staff or my other colleagues. And also the other person is Nadia Williams, who's not here today because she's based out at our Surrey campus, but she's another great resource. So you really have a full team of people to help you.
And with that, I am going to turn things over to Sophie. So I'll pass that to you there. It's press down to go forward. I know that's a little counterintuitive, but otherwise you've got everything you need.
Yeah, thank you. So we have 3 different majors. We have kinesiology with or without an active health and rehab concentration. We have biomedical physiology, and we have behavioral neuroscience. This is an oversimplification, but kinesiology they all lead to a Bachelor of Science. And kinesiology is a little more whole body. Biomedical physiology is a little bit more cellular. And behavioral neuroscience is half BPK and half psychology. And of course, it's the brain and the body. So that's what behavioral neuroscience. So sometimes students will say, oh, am I in the right major? What kind of careers can I do with those different majors? So with kinesiology, a lot of students might be interested in going out and working as a registered kinesiologist. And there's a number of different things you can do. And I think Aiden will touch a little bit more about that when he talks about co-op and careers. But basically, a lot of people will say, I want to keep my options open for med school, but I'd really like to become an orthopedic surgeon. They would probably end up in kinesiology. But other students might say, I really want to become a physical therapist or an occupational therapist. And they would do kinesiology as well. A lot of the students who are interested in the 3 things that I've just mentioned will be in the active health and rehab concentration. If you got in directly out of high school, you're sitting as a kin major, but the concentration needs to be added to your record if you're interested in doing that. You simply contact me through email, name, student number. I'd like the concentration added to my record, and it takes me just a minute. Okay, and the reason why that's important is later on in the presentation, we're going to show you some really useful resources. And you will need to be looking at the correct resources based on what you're doing. Okay. And so biomedical physiology, as I said, is more cellular. Some students are very keen on keeping their options open for medicine. maybe even dentistry, maybe even optometry, pharmacy. They would be in biomedical physiology. And then it's not that you can't go into those with one of our other degrees, but that is your best option. And then for behavioral neuroscience, I'm going to get our student reps to talk a little bit more about that. But because it is both the brain and the body, you kind of have different options in which directions that you go. But again, if somebody says, I'd like to become a medical doctor, but I would like to focus on, I'd like to specialize with people with neurological disorders, or I'd like to go all the way and I'd like to become a psychiatrist, or I want to go down the clinical counselor route or the educational counselor route. So I won't get into too much of that today because there'll be other information sessions where we can discuss that kind of thing. The other thing that we have as well is we have two minors. We have a kinesiology minor and we have a biomedical physiology minor. So to give you an example, somebody might say, I'm really, really interested in molecular biology and biochemistry, MBB. I'd like to do an MBB major, but I really want to do human physiology and anatomy. We are the only department at SFU that does human physiology and human anatomy. So they might decide they want to do a biomedical physiology minor along with their MBB. For a student who might be, again, an MBB, that's probably an unusual combination, but let's say somebody's doing biology or health sciences or business, a major in that area, and they decide they want to do a kinesiology minor, that's perfectly fine too. So you can combine majors and minors across departments and across faculties. The reason why we're mentioning these minors today as well is because some of our students end up doing what's called a Bachelor of General Science double minor program. One minor has to be in science, the other minor can be in science, but it can be in anything else in one of the other departments. I think I'm handing over to Aidan.
Okay, so you might be wondering, so what does it mean to do a major or minor practically? Like, what does that actually mean in terms of courses? So that's a question that every student asks. It's not just BPK students. That's applies to all SFU students or university students in general. So there are different types of courses. So the terms I'm going to point out here, lower division versus upper division. So lower division basically means any course that's 100 or 200 level, okay? Upper division courses are 300 and 400 level courses. By the time you get to upper division courses, those are more specific. They have very focused topics. Whereas your lower division, you're looking at, for example, first year math, which is calculus, right? Calculus 1, calculus 2. Those are very broad, more overview courses. So you are in a science program as a BPK student. So you'll notice that your lower division courses are going to include some BPK, but also biology, chemistry, math, MBB, physics, and a stat course. So that is one thing about SFU's BPK program is it does have a very strong science background, and that can be an advantage for if you're thinking about grad school in the future. So if you mentioned med school, you're going to write an MCAT, you're going to need science knowledge, those types of things. So it is one of the strengths of the BPK program, but it's also kind of adds to the rigorousness of it. Your upper division courses will depend on the major that you pick because the courses become more specific. You also get to choose your courses more, okay? So your lower division, you're kind of told which courses to take, but by the time you get to upper division courses, you'll have a list of courses and you'll be selecting your own courses. It says here units, so that's a term that formerly was called credits. It's units. Most courses at SFU are 3-unit courses. Some courses might be 4 units. For example, like first year biology has a lab attached to it. That's a 4-unit course, okay? The other term you might hear about is honors. So honors is essentially if you find that you have, there's a topic that you'd like to do more research on as an undergrad student, one option is to do honors, okay? And honors is essentially just adding a thesis onto your standard undergrad degree. So a thesis basically means you have a research question, right? It's something that you want to investigate, and you'd have a prof that you're working with, you're probably working in a lab, and then you'd have a report at the end of that. WQB requirements, and again, this is hopefully something you might have heard about if you've done any of the uni prep courses. These are essentially your elective courses. So electives are courses that are outside your main field of study. Okay, so these are going to be non-science courses because you'll need 2 humanities courses and 2 courses from social sciences. So we're getting a little bit technical here, and if you'd like more information on that, you're more than welcome to reach out to us and can provide you with like the list of those courses and that sort of thing. But this is just the broad overview. So speaking of courses, there are program planners. So a program planner is essentially like a map of your degree. It'll list out all the possible courses you can take, and you can kind of figure out what courses you want and what courses you need, and then have an idea or a general idea of how your semesters are going to look like. These are all, by the way, on the BPK website. So the link is at the bottom right there, and we'll probably be sending that out in an email, and Carmen's going to put it in the chat. This page, it's the forms page, and we're going to go through it shortly, has all of these resources. It's also going to have the course maps, approval guidelines. That's essentially for anyone here who's interested in behavioral neuroscience. You do need to go through internal transfer to get approved into that. There's a very helpful document, which is just a suggestion for your first year courses, as well as some more general forms. And I think, Sophie, back to you. Yeah.
Thanks, Aiden. So Aiden was just giving you a brief introduction to the various resources that are available to you. You are now an undergraduate student at SFU, and you are a current student. And I'm just going to, let me just see. So click on that. Oops, did I go in the wrong direction? I've got it upside down. Thanks. So this is, once you're there, you will see courses. And what's very, very useful about this now it goes directly to the, okay. So a lot of students, you guys are keeners, and you're going to say, I want to plan my degree out for the next 4 years. So I always say, hold on a little bit, just get your first couple of terms down. But it is good to try to see what, not all courses are offered all the time. Most of the core courses are offered twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. But some of our general electives that are popular but smaller tend to run only once a year. So it's important to know when these courses are running. Almost every department has something similar to what I'm just about to show you. So this is a document. It shows you again all the 100 level courses. Oops. Do I get to the second page on that
Oh,
one?
didn't screenshot the whole thing, just as an example.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, so there'll be 3 pages of this, I think. So you'll see all the 100 level courses, 200, 300, 400, and it tends to go in 2-year cycles. So as you can see now, it's just going to summer of 2026. Unfortunately, sometimes things happen and we have to make a few changes. But even in that case, it will normally be 98%, if not more accurate. Okay, so so it's great for you to be able to see this. You can see there that the title of the course is there and it's in blue. When you're in this document, it's actually, those are live links to the calendar. Okay. The other thing is, if you want more information about advising, and again, that's me. And then there's a lot of really useful information on this page. You have to scroll down, but it'll tell you when I have advising hours. And you will need to go through Advisor Link to book an appointment with me, but sometimes quick questions will come up. So on Mondays and Wednesdays, I have drop-in Zoom. So you can just connect, and usually sometimes they're very busy, especially close to enrollment time, but otherwise, sometimes you might end up with a one-on-one appointment with me without having booked it, because you may be the only person there. So that's advising. And then the next one is, when you press the contact button, this is what you'll get. So you'll have to fill in the form. Samakshi is here helping us out behind with Neela as well. And that form will go to both of us. And so we try to give you a pretty quick answer when you send an email to the contact the advisor button. And here we are back to those forms that Aidan was telling you about. So there will be, this is a page, there will be program planners. I think that's the next page, right? There will be program planners for each individual major. There will be one for BP, there will be one for kin. Under kin, there'll be one for kin major versus active health and rehab, and there will be one for behavioral neuroscience. And so that is a planner. It's a 2-page document. Now, I think if I click on there, it'll actually show you the document. So this is the page right here. The first page is all of the required first and second year courses. The next page is all your third and fourth required. So if you complete everything that's on here, you've completed your degree. So a lot of students will download this to their laptop or whatever they're using. And as they're working on courses, they're ticking them off. Then along with these, there's also a course map. So this is the course map. Now this one's for kin, but there's one for BP as well. And this is not necessarily meant to be printed and you can scratch off the courses as you're doing them. Some students do that, but this is actually an interactive document. So I would be able to click on Bioscience 101, for instance. It would take me directly to the calendar. It would give me access to a detailed course outline. It will say who's teaching the course, what are you going to be covering at what day, what time, a more detailed list of what you'll be covering during the term. It'll give you an idea of how you're going to be graded for the course, and it's going to give you a list of materials that you need, your textbooks or reading materials. So that's why this is a really useful document as well. And then I think we've got the, this is the approval guideline and approval form. This is primarily for the BNU intended students. In case we do have some students that came in from college, and we may have a small number of students that are sitting in as biomedical physiology intended or kinesiology intended. And there will be a form just like this one for you when you've met the minimum criteria to apply for an internal transfer. So basically we will be looking at a set of courses with a certain GPA. And I think Aidan will give you a little bit more of information about that. You can see we're just going to be doing this back and forth. Do you want to take this part over here?
Yeah. That's for some yes. So yeah, this also, like Sophie said, behavioral neuroscience students, you're going to do internal transfer. If you're a transfer student from a college, for example, you'll also do internal transfer into one of the BPK programs. Now, your courses from college, they do transfer over. You do get credit towards your degree. However, for internal transfer into a BPK program, we only look at your SFU grades, okay? So I'm not going to go too into detail on this because it's a little bit more information than probably everyone needs to see. But the way that BPK handles internal transfer is seeing how you do in certain courses. It's all GPA based is what matters. So don't worry about, there's a term, it's called competitive entry. Don't worry, you're not competing against anyone. It doesn't matter how many other students get in. The only thing you're competing against is a GPA, okay? So getting high enough grades in the courses that we're looking for in set 1 and set 2. Go on. This is the suggested first year enrollment. And so there is a very handy page here that suggests what you could take in your first year, okay? So I want to point out in particular the first term. So what do you notice about that? There's actually only 3 science courses listed here and an elective course. So we really do highly suggest, and as Sophie mentioned, that first year, the first term, it is a big transition. Whether you're coming from high school or even coming from another institution, a college, SFU is going to be a big jump, right? It's going to be bigger classes. You're getting used to a new commute, new community, new environment. Maybe you're living on residence or living on campus. So there's going to be a lot of things that you're juggling. So we recommend taking a lighter course load for your first term, at least for your first term, okay? So this would be a perfectly fine first term. BPK 142 is the intro to BPK course, and then taking care of a chemistry course. Chemistry is a pretty important course as a prerequisite for a lot of other courses you need. And in this case, we have Physics 100. This would be an example of a student who hasn't taken Physics 12 yet, okay? If you do have Physics 12, you could take Phys 101. If you don't have the Physics 12, then you do need this introductory physics course. Okay, so this is one example of how your first term could look, okay? Again, you don't need to do it this way. This is just a suggestion.
I just want to add to what Aidan's saying. There is one for BP. There is one for Ken. I think that was the one for Ken, as I could see from here. And there's one for behavioral neuroscience. So there'll be you'll notice that if you look at all three of them, there's a lot of similarities, but there are some minor differences as well. And so make sure you're looking at the right one for your. And just one of the other things that Aidan said is the internal transfer. It is competitive entry. You can apply as many times as you want. Well, not entirely, but you can apply once, and we'll give you, if we say no, you're not quite ready, we'll give you some suggestions. The only time when the internal transfer becomes a bit more difficult is if you haven't made it into the major and you're ready to jump into third year courses. We may need to chat about a really good backup plan for you. Maybe one of our minors was something else. But so sometimes when students hear competitive entry, as you said, you're not competing against other students in terms of, oh, this year they're only accepting 30 and there's like 200 applications. It's just you need to meet, it's a challenging program. You need to meet certain GPA. If you're just a little bit below, you struggled in one course, don't be too concerned. You get a couple of chances to, and that's why you've got this great team too, because you can come in and chat with someone who can get you back on track with your academics.
Yes, thank you. We can certainly help you interpret the internal transfer process if you have any questions. As Sophie said, it's all GPA based. So there are some set 1 and 2 courses which we looked at earlier. So you'll want to know, how do you figure out like what is your GPA? What are your grades? That's where your advising transcript will come in handy. So this is accessible through GoSFU. Everyone is able to download their own advising transcript. I'm just going to point out a couple little things to know here. This is a redacted version of someone's transcript, so there's no personal information shown here, but you'll see on the left-hand column is where you'll see your high school grades, high school courses. So any high school courses you've done, the reason that would be important is knowing, for example, do you have, if you have Physics 12, that example, then you don't need Phys 100, you can go to Phys 101, right? If we look up at the right-hand corner, SFU units. So if you're starting at SFU as all you are, you'll start with 0 units, so that'll be 0 there. If you do international exchange, that's why there's that listed there. If you are coming in from a college or other post-secondary institution, then you'd have transfer units, okay? So if there's courses that might be missing on I do recommend any students that are transferring, just check that all your transfer courses are showing up there, okay? Your total units will be all your SFU units plus any transfers. This UD refers to upper division. So as I mentioned, upper division are any 300 or 400 level courses. Okay, and then we have co-op units if you do co-op, and then cumulative GPA. So cumulative CGPA, as it's known at SFU, that's all of your courses that are done at SFU, the GPA, the grade point average for all those courses. There's also an upper div cumulative GPA that's listed there. And just be prepared. So very ominous. Okay. We do want to encourage you. It is a huge step coming into post-secondary, but you're doing great. Even the fact that you're here today is really important. Reaching out to resources is one of the big tips that we recommend to help you succeed in your first year and beyond at SFU. So as I mentioned, course load, one of the advantages at SFU is it's a tri-semester system. So we have 3 terms per year, which offer pretty much a full load of courses, right? So the reason that's helpful is it can decrease the amount of courses you need in a term if you decide to do courses throughout the year, right? So you might have friends at UBC, for example, who are doing 5 or 6 courses in their very first term, because UBC has a very structured system, and certain courses are only offered at certain times. Because we have 3 different semesters in a year, there's a lot of flexibility about when you pick up courses, and they're offered quite frequently, especially your lower division courses, okay? Upper division, they start being offered maybe once a year, twice a year. But for that reason, yeah, your course load, we have lots of students who have other activities, they're working, they're volunteering, family commitments, those types of things, all will affect how many courses you can do in your academics, right? Tri-semester system, prereqs and co-reqs. Just in case you've heard that term, or you're wondering, like, what is a prerequisite course? What does that mean? A prereq simply means a course that you need to do in order to do the next course. Okay, so if you see any of your courses listing prereq and then a course or a set of courses, that just means those courses have to be done before you take that course. Okay, a co-req is a little bit different because you can either do that a co-req before you take the course you want to get into or at the same time. Okay. Minimum GPA, some courses will list a minimum GPA to get into it. So it'll have a prerequisite course with a minimum GPA, like a C-, for example, in the prereq to get into the next course. Okay, I wanted to share a little bit about co-op. How many people have heard of co-op? Just show of hands. Okay, good. So it is a well-known thing about SFU in particular has a very strong co-op program. Co-op is essentially, as you know, taking a semester off of school in order to get work experience. And it is paid work experience in the field that you're studying. So BPK actually has a pretty good set of offerings for co-op jobs. I mentioned that I was a kin student a long time ago. I actually did 5 co-ops as a student here, which is a lot. I think it's probably the most they let you do. They typically want you to, if you're going to join the program, they ask you to kind of commit to 3 co-ops. So co-ops are typically 1 term long, right? So that's 4 months of work experience in the field. The reason it's really helpful, not only are you getting paid and getting, the work experience and getting a reference and kind of learning what the field is like, you're also learning what you might want to do with your degree and also what you don't want to do with your degree, right? So when I came into kin, I was really keen on physiotherapy, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. I really liked sports. I liked being active. And my first co-op job was at a health club. And so I was working with the machines and all that sort of stuff. And I really didn't enjoy it a whole lot. I couldn't see myself doing that long term. So my second co-op was in ergonomics. And ergonomics is essentially designing things to fit the human body, right? So it could be a chair, it could be a mouse, it could be a keyboard, a workstation. And my ergonomics co-op was in Alberta, High River, Alberta, small town south of Calgary, in a beef plant of all places. So really harsh environment, but super good learning experience. I was, essentially the ergonomics person at that plant with a boss. And really from that experience, learned that this was something I really wanted to do. So when I came back from that co-op, it helped guide the courses that I wanted to take for the rest of my degree. And I took all the biomechanics courses, ergonomics, human factors, anything cognitive ergonomics related, and then ended up working in IT because my last co-op was at Nokia. If you remember that company, the cell phones, they used to have an R&D center in Richmond, and I was able to get a co-op job there and work in like user experience, UI design, usability testing, that sort of thing. So I share that story just to show that one, BPK is a super broad program. There's a lot of different things you can get into. Sophie already mentioned some of the careers, but there's many more that maybe you've never even considered. And 2, co-op is a great way to get that experience and then help you when you graduate. My first job when I left SFU was through my last co-op employer because I stayed in touch with them. So So, yeah.
I think we're going to turn things up. I'll be back up very briefly. I am now going to invite our current students to come up and chat with you, starting with Jovan from BPKSA, that mysterious acronym. I'll now let him explain. It's just clicking down there to move.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Jovan. I'm a third-year biomedical physiology major. I'm the current president of Biomedical Physiology and Kinesiology Student Association, which is what BPKSA stands for. So who we are a fairly large group of BPK major students, and we plan social events and gatherings for students, as well as we help provide you with a voice and change to your programs. So if there are any large concerns or something, you guys can reach out to us, and then we can get in touch with the faculty and people and trying to implement some changes. We do yearly send surveys to our students to see how happy they are with the ways things have been running in the program. And if there are any issues with those, we would show those all to our faculty members and chairs, and then they would discuss and see what they can do to make it better for us. Some of many events we do, for example, this semester, right now we're planning our careers night, where we get a lot of our SFU alumni that have been in this program and now are doing many different things like a doctor, dentist, ergonomist, any really of the careers that you can do. They are gonna just give their experience on how it was for them at SFU and how it is now working the actual career. We do movie nights. We even do some hikes with the SFU Hike Club. And then during summer, we happen to have like a beach day here and there, which is when we just all organize one big beach hangout with just snacks and drinks and just nothing too much. But there is one huge event. It's for first years only, so for all of you guys. In the fall, it's called BPK 101. It is the biggest event for biomedical physiology, kinesiology, and BNSS students. So that's where we are gonna, we get you guys all into a room. We have a bunch of speakers from the faculty talk about different programs that are connected to BPK, such as the co-op or the ergonomics program and other certificates you can get along with the degree, as well as we take you on lab tours. So the labs you will have classes in, and the labs where our profs do some of their research. And then we just have some fun events with prizes and stuff and free food. This is our Instagram tag if you guys want to follow us. This is where we put up all of our updates of our events and whatever is going on and happening and the stuff we are planning and will have moving forward. This is also how you can get a hold of us if you ever need to, if you ever want to be a part of the team as well. We have first year reps, which we will be talking more about once fall starts. And that's how you can easily get involved into the student association if you're interested, and then that way you can just get involved in the community more. But yeah, that's it from me. And then
so I'll take over. Thank you. All right, so hello, I'm Lynn. I'm the current president of the BNSS, and this is Kay, our current vice president of administration. So kind of like the BPKSA, we are a student union that's primarily representing behavioral neuroscience students. Because of the unique position that our program has, we're really straddling BPK as well as psych. We officially represent intended and declared behavioral neuroscience majors, as well as any student that is taking a BPK or psych course. So we're kind of all over the place with that. Our organization does a lot of different things, including like events, outreach. We also do have representation on a number of the committees to make sure that programs are accessible and that we can really advocate for behavioral neuroscience students when different things are changing at SFU. There we go. So we do have a number of events, as I mentioned. Currently, we're piloting our brain games, which are study sessions that we'll be holding in SciSpace. We also have some other events, including our big annual event, which is our neuro networking night. It's a good opportunity to kind of learn more about what you can do with the program, meet some instructors, and just kind of meet each other because we are pretty scattered in the university.
We also have a few different social media platforms, most notably our Instagram and our Discord. Our Instagram is where we're primarily posting announcements about different things that we're doing, as well as some outreach. And Discord is really the place to go for connecting with the community. So we'll post announcements there. We'll also have a general channel for people to ask questions. So because behavioral neuroscience can be a bit complicated to kind of get into, and we do take a lot of relatively difficult courses. So it's a great opportunity to connect with people in your class or ask questions about like the transfer process or course enrollment, or what is this professor like? What is this course like? So this is really kind of the place to go to connect. Lastly, kind of once you get your SFU computing ID, you'll also have access to the go.sfss.ca, which is just a website that has all the clubs and the student union information. So you can always find out more about what we're doing through that website.
I'll say that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you. And something I'll add too, correct me if I'm speaking out of turn here, but even though the students in the room and on Zoom aren't starting to this fall, can they come attend your summer events?
Absolutely, yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Fantastic. Just before we move into the Q&A, I'm going to take a moment to have our contact information up here. Please feel free to take a second to scan that. We also have, I believe Carmen can pop all of this in the chat as well, although for our folks who are on Zoom, it probably is even easier to screenshot this, but I'll just move aside from the screen as people take photos real quick. And that QR code will get you to Sophie's advising page. I will bring the screen back, so if you miss it now, don't worry, it will be returning. But in the meantime, I think we can go ahead and open the floor to some questions. I'll perhaps start with a question or two in the room, and then Carmen, I'll ask you to relay some questions from Zoom, but let's start with folks in the room. Does anyone have any questions for any of our guests today, or just anything you'd like to know more about?
And you know, if one of you has a question, I bet you half the other students in the room
Are also thinking it.
So please.
For behavioral neurosciences, when would be a good time to declare your major to like finish all your courses and all?
Yeah, and here I'll move over so we're not all squished. So that question was for behavioral neuroscience. When's a good time to declare your major? And actually, perhaps I'll ask Aiden to answer that, as Aiden often works with students who need to do that internal transfer process.
Yes, yeah, great question. And again, you're always welcome to come here to talk this more out. So as we briefly showed, there was a set of courses to do. So you'll want to start with those set one courses. Again, this is all going to be on the website and the links are going to be sent out. That's going to be your focus to start, right? So focus on those set one courses. You can still take electives if you want, but I would say focus on those and just focus on GPA because it is, you're looking for a 3.0 on those set one courses. A 3.0 translates to a B, okay? So a B average on set one is your focus. When you've completed the set one courses, you're able to apply to be admitted as a major. So you would send an email to Sophie with the application form filled out and attach that advising transcript that we kind of showed a screenshot. You're going to attach that in the email, okay? It will take a term for you to actually be admitted into the program. No worries though, you can still take courses. The main advantage of being declared into a program, into a major or minor, is that you would have access to the upper division courses. The 300, 400 level BPK courses are reserved for approved majors and minors. However, in your first year, you're not taking any of the 300, 400 levels anyways, so don't worry about it too much. Okay, so usually within a couple terms, 2 to 3 terms is kind of what you're looking at.
Yeah, say about 2 terms is pretty typical if students are completing just the set 1 courses and getting that 3.0 GPA. If they'll also be taking some set 2 courses, then 3, maybe 4 terms is a bit more common. So a year, maybe up to 2. Carmen, we got a question from the Zoom.
We have a few questions from the Zoom.
Excellent.
Actually. So the first one, we were talking about the trimester system and the term 1, term 2, term 3 courses. So firstly, is it strongly recommended to follow the trimester system for the BPK program?
Oh, excellent question. So I'm interpreting that as, should you take courses every semester is how I'm interpreting that. This does very much come down to personal preference. So perhaps we'll ask everyone's advice. Personally, I am a strong advocate for no. You should not take courses every single semester indefinitely. Things like co-op to break up those semesters, maybe doing an international exchange, that's still school, but it's a little more relaxed. Or just old-fashioned taking a term off to work or volunteer or travel, I think is very important personally. But maybe let's get some opinions down the line. I'll start with Kay. How about yourself? What do you think?
Well, I've taken one semester off in my whole degree, so I've got a little bit of a different perspective. Some people find it a little bit difficult to stay within the 4-year mark to graduate with your undergraduate degree. So it depends on how much of a rush you're in. So some people say, I want to get out of here. They'll take every single semester, as many courses as are available. One con to doing stuff during the summer is that some of the courses are limited in availability versus things that will be very available in the fall and spring. But on the other hand, if there's a challenging course, for example, Chem 121 is pretty tricky for some people. If you're not a fan of Chem or physics or something like that, it's a great option to just take by itself or maybe with a few other courses so that your workload is more manageable in the rest of the year.
Yeah, I'll go with kind of my experience. So I've been consistently taking kind of a full course load, which is, I know with SFU officially full term is 9 units, and I think 12 is kind of the standard. So I've been taking about 12 units a semester in fall and spring, and then summer's been variable for me. I've taken anywhere from like 1 to 4 courses in a summer semester. The advantage that I have with that is, and a lot of other students find it this way, you can take fewer courses per semester and still kind of be on track to graduate within 4 or 5 years, depending on your goals. And you can kind of space it out so you have time for like part-time work, for example, and like volunteer and other opportunities. I have also taken a few semesters off to do co-op, which is not like a full break because you are working full time, but it has been a nice break from the academic side of things. When I'm getting a little burnt out, I'm like, okay, let's start looking for a co-op. So yeah, I personally love the summer options. One thing to note as well with upper division BPK, they aren't, or at least with behavioral neuroscience, there aren't as many offerings in the summer, so that is a consideration. But summer courses are perfectly fine to take as long as you know what you want to do for your course planning.
Anything you'd like to add?
For me, well, I just took a summer semester in first year and then I was like, never again. But now that I'm going into 4th year, I'm gonna start going into summer semester again because this year is gonna take me a while to graduate. Because I was taking full course loads, like 4 courses each fall and spring. And then recently I started taking more electives. So now I need to make up my core courses. Also, a lot of the BPK core courses are not available in summer semesters. Some are, majority is fall and spring. So that's also one thing to look out for if you want to take summer semester. Usually the electives from other faculties are available. Some BPK courses are as well, but most of them plan to take in fall and spring. And then don't worry about trying to fit it all into 4 years. It's not possible.
Aiden or Sophie, anything either of you would like to add, or have we covered the spectrum of summer opinions so far?
Just to talk about what's considered full-time at SFU. For students who are on student loans, it's 9 units is minimum full-time. There are some students who are on scholarships or varsity athletes, they have to be in 12. So everyone needs to be aware of what their situation is to know what their minimum full-time is considered. But SFU is flexible. You do allow students to be registered in only 3 units in one term, or you can register right up to 18 units. Don't do that in your first term. Not for sure at all. So because the university has a lot of flexibility built in, that allows students to be part-time, full-time, take a term off. But typically 12 units, give or take, is about the norm. And then for some students, especially often in their first year, because they want to get their prerequisites done, they may do 12 and 12 and then pick up maybe 2 in the summer. The first year sciences, general sciences, tend to be offered in the summer. So as was mentioned, if there's a subject that you really, really struggle with, there's 2 different ways you can look at it. You may want to take it early because you're still remembering what you learned in high school and you don't want to forget it. Or if you took it quite a while back anyway, and you're going, I'm going to leave this one till summer, so I can focus on it. So there isn't a definitive answer is basically what we're saying, because it may be sort of individual to you.
I see Kate's itching to add something.
Yeah, just one more thing about the full time. If you have CAL accommodations, so that's Center for Accessible Learning. If you have accommodations, then sometimes they will change what is full time to you. So it might not necessarily be 9 or 12.
Great addition. Aiden, anything, or did we cover it
I
all?
think you covered both.
We covered the spectrum of
Yeah.
opinions. All right, I'll open back up to the room again, since that was just a Zoom question. Yeah, go ahead.
So in the course schedule thing, looking up schedules, I see like there's lower divisions, so like 1 to 200, and then there's upper 3 to 4, and I see like there's 800, like.
Great question. So if you're looking at courses and all of a sudden you see something that's not just 100, 200, 300, 400 level, what does that mean? You might occasionally see listed 5, 6, 7, 8, or 900. Those are almost exclusively graduate studies. So students working on master's degrees, or doctoral degrees, that kind of thing. So with rare exceptions, nothing you have to worry about. Great question. Maybe one from Zoom again.
We have lots of questions.
Okay, all right. Maybe let's do 2 from Zoom and give everyone in the room a second to think of their questions. Go ahead.
One of them is, how do we get to decide if we want to take a minor along with a major? And I'll combine another one with that with what breadth electives would you recommend for
You bet. I'm going to ask Aiden to answer our question of how do you decide what to do for a minor if you decide to pursue one. And then perhaps I'll then go to our students for some recommended electives of things you enjoy. So let's start with Aiden.
So most students will do a major, and that's their degree, right? You do have the option to combine, right? A major with a minor. So a minor just has less requirements than a major, so there's less courses to do. You can actually combine with any minor at SFU. It doesn't have to be a science minor. You could do, I've seen, kin majors with a business minor, for example. So it kind of depends on maybe what direction you think you want to take your degree. It could also be purely on interest, like someone really has an interest in, English or an arts minor. And in that case, you can do that. Sophie mentioned there is a double minor option, so you can get a bachelor's degree with 2 minors, okay? So that's an option. There are certain programs that have double majors, joint majors. Those are you're essentially doing the requirements for 2 majors. We can talk about the websites of each of the programs, departments will have information on that. The SFU calendar has information on that. And then if you have further questions, please do ask us. But that's kind of the general overview. Yeah.
And let's hear some electives you guys have enjoyed.
Okay, general recommendations. If you want specifics, contact our Discord. But I would say people recommend a lot of easy courses, but will often be disappointed when they do worse in those easy courses than they do their core courses. Try to do things that you find interesting, because even if archaeology might be really easy, it will be difficult if you don't like it. I really like cognitive science. I enjoyed psychology as a neuroscience major. So anything that's related to that, education, I've done a lot of stuff. Spanish, the language department is really great. It's really interactive and you get to talk to people, which is fantastic. And also take into account if you like online courses. If you do not, avoid them. If you do want to free up some time on your calendar, then go ahead and do that.
Great.
Yeah, I'll go with mine because I've taken probably too many electives at this point. But I really just was looking through the WQB, those breadth courses, because there are some that are like humanities and social sciences, which as a science student you'll need to take separately. So I was looking through just to see what was interesting to me, and then it was after taking those electives that I kind of used those to figure out what minor I may want to do. So I've taken some computer science, very intro programming, very intro linguistics courses, and I really like those. And then by chance, I stumbled across the cognitive science minor, which allows you to follow those streams with some lower division courses and then take a few extra cognitive science courses. So that's kind of how I stumbled into that minor. Like Kay said as well, I do recommend not listening to people who recommend GPA booster courses. That is a myth. Everyone's will be different. Like Kay said, it's really based on your interests, and everyone will have a different type of course that would be their GPA booster. That said, if you do want to learn more about what my experiences were with courses, or you're just curious, feel free to ask me after the event, or again, you can reach out to us through Discord or Instagram DM to get in contact with the BNSS.
So for me, what I did, the best thing to do before even like thinking which breath courses you want to do is just Google SFU breath courses. It's gonna give you a drop-down list. It's gonna tell you, because we need to take 3 different types of breath courses, like humanities, social science, and whatever the third one was.
But you do that
Science,
already.
yes.
Don't worry about the
So,
science.
You guys can ignore. The other 2, you can just see all the courses, because some courses count for both. But when you take it, it's only gonna count towards the one that you choose. So just look at the list, look at what you're interested in. Like a year or so ago, I have taken a couple of business courses because I thought I was gonna minor in business, but it didn't really work out. So I thought it was gonna be a GPA booster. Was I wrong? So like those courses, right now I'm taking Spanish. So I switched over to the languages department. I'm gonna be doing like a certificate in Spanish. They're trying to push it as a minor now as well. So if that comes, I'm gonna be minoring in a language. I'm also gonna be taking some psychology courses. There's cognitive, there is criminology, there's all kinds of things. Just look at the reviews, look at what you're interested in. And yeah, don't believe in GPA boosters.
I'll add to that as well. If any of you are thinking longer term about medical school, veterinary studies, that kind of thing, something I see a lot is requiring at least 1, often 2 English courses. So those are a relatively safe elective choice in terms of meeting not only SFU's elective requirements, but also future programs you might be applying to. And I am seeing more and more, like most recently, I believe it's University of Saskatchewan's veterinary school has gone from recommended to requiring an Indigenous studies course. And that's something a lot of our students enjoy as well.
So
So
to point out as well, the SFU Med School is going to be requiring that as well. So if you are interested in applying to SFU Med once that opens, take an Indigenous studies.
So just in relation to that, so medical school, yes, 2 English courses. Most of the first year English courses, not 199, but anything from English 111 to 115 are breath humanities. So that's why we've mentioned those, because you will be satisfying your 6 units of breath humanities as well as taking care of your 6 units for medical school. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, a lot of those programs actually require an intro psych course. And it just so, or CogSci, it just turns out that intro psych or cognitive sciences are breath social sciences. So that's another way to satisfy requirements. More and more professional programs are requiring an Indigenous course. University of Alberta PT program, for instance, wants that. Right now, there is a mass open online, a MOOC course where students who haven't taken an Indigenous course at SFU or another post-secondary you can complete that requirement through that. But so the point of what we're saying now is think ahead of what are you interested in? Optometry, PT, OT, medicine. Go and have a look and say, oh, I think I'm interested in applying to 3 universities, SFU, UBC, Queens, McGill. Go and have a look at their website and see. There's a lot of similarities. The English is kind of across the board. And a lot of the, as I said, PTOT programs want that 3 units of psych. But that will help you, because we've got lots of students who are almost finished their degrees, have taken a lot of general electives, and then realize that they're missing something for the professional school. So they're in 4th year, their last term, or maybe they're staying an extra term to get that requirement. So with some help from all of us, you can be building those into your degree. Yeah, and yes, you don't need to, you meet your quantitative automatically and you meet your breath science automatically.
don't worry about that.
So it's only your 6 units of breath humanities, 6 units of breath social sciences, and then if you need additional general elective units to meet your total of 120.
I think we have time for one more question. Yes, go ahead.
On the website for the requirements for the electives, it said that for science students, they need to take science courses that are outside of our required.
Yes, that's an excellent question. So to meet that breadth sciences requirement, they do need to be sciences from outside your major area of study, but they can be still required for your major. So for example, you're all going to need to take biology, chemistry, physics. These are going to, without you even trying, cover those breadth science requirements. So you will have those on lock without even worrying about it.
And that's a very good question because it can be confusing. But in this particular case, you can't count a BPK course to satisfy that breath science or It's a bit more complicated. We'll leave being you out. That's a bit more
You
complicated.
don't need to worry about it.
But you don't need to worry about it because you have taken biology, chemistry, math, physics.
That was a quick one, so I'll do one more from Zoom from Carmen there.
There were so many.
I'm just going to jump in very quickly because the advising transcript that we showed you, when you take a course that satisfies breath humanities, breath social sciences, quantitative, right next to the course, you'll see math 154. And then just to the right of it, it'll tell you that it satisfied quantitative. And if you took psychology, it'll show BSOS. So if you're wondering, if you've taken courses and you're wondering if it satisfies one of those requirements, that document tells you what it's satisfying. And the other place that you can tell is if you look at a calendar description, at the end of the calendar description, it'll say W/B.-hum. So there's multiple places if you're wondering.
Carmen.
Yeah, so this question is for those interested in professional schools like medical school, maybe physio or grad school. Do the courses you choose in your first year matter a lot for when you're applying to schools later on?
That is a really good question. So for students later applying to professional programs, graduate school, are your first year courses going to matter? The grades in those courses, your course load? The short answer is it really depends. It depends on the program you're applying to. Some of those programs will look at everything you've done your entire degree. Some will just look at the upper division, the last 2 years, usually your last 60 credits. So the short answer is it depends. I will say generally medical schools look at almost everything with a few caveats and exceptions. A lot of graduate programs, but not all of them, tend to look at the more recent last 2 years or so of your studies. That brings us to the end of our hour. We'll still stick around in person for questions. I know our folks on Zoom still had more questions coming in, so I'll just reiterate again all of our contact information that is on here, and for our folks that are on Zoom to be able to follow up with us as well. For those of you in the room, we're going to stick around. We'll be able to keep answering your questions. I also want to give such a huge thank you to Neela and Samanchi for running all of the back end technical side of things, as well as Carmen for being our interpreter between the comment section and the presentation. So with that, goodbye to our online Zoom people. Thank you so much. I will let our folks end the meeting. For everybody else in person, feel free to stick around and chat with us. We'll